and sometimes you need more than a
Snuggling.
puppy. I know, sometimes you need more than a puppy to self-soothe, because who doesn't want to be a better version of themselves? I'd like to be. The blueprint to getting there is not in plain sight, because we all have different experiences, right? For Dr. Samantha Harte, finding a way out of trauma required a reconciliation with her life choices.
Oh, she's written a book. It's called Breaking the Circuit: How to Rewire Your Mind for Hope, Resilience, and Joy in the Face of Trauma. Dr. Samantha Harte, welcome to New York Living, and thank you so much for coming here to share your story.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
So let's start with it. Tell us the trauma that you've been through so that we can get an idea of how low you were at one point and how far you've come.
Yeah. I grew up in a house where my mom was mentally ill and she was self-medicating, and my dad was the family enabler. All of that seemed really normal growing up. Of course, in hindsight, I realized quite a bit that was something I was going to have to reckon with. And so for me, drugs and alcohol seemed like a normal thing to do, but by the time I was in my 20s, I was off and running, and I overdosed on cocaine the same night I got accepted into a doctoral program. And that began the journey into recovery, but it was going to be a long time before I really got well. And the impetus for writing my book is that I lost my sister 2 years ago to a drug overdose. But I am here to tell you that there is hope after heartbreak, and there is joy after grief.
Yeah, that's a lot. Thank you for sharing that story with us. Hope and joy and resilience, right? I feel like resilience is one of those buzzwords we hear a lot about, and sometimes I feel like I wish I weren't resilient, because dang, I went through a lot to get to this place. But you've kind of turned it on your head. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about what it means, or what are the things we need to be resilient, because you talk a lot about self-awareness.
Yeah, I think we have to be aware with some kind of pain point. That could just be a physical pain point, something that you love to do that now is causing you pain, like running, and you're like, I need to change something. Could be an emotional pain point, like a friendship that's not working or a job you don't really like. Then we have the awareness of something needs to change, but we've got to get willing, and that's the real delineation, because you have a window of opportunity to change, but you have to be so tired of the way you're living that the fear of change is less scary than going on the way that you are.
Yeah. I almost feel like self-awareness is a trait. Some people really don't have it. Can you get there through therapy, right? Like, some people are just not self-aware.
Absolutely.
How do you get to that point?
I think the body keeps score. I think that if you're not sleeping well, if you scan your life, the quality of your sleep, the quality of your relationships, the quality of your self-talk will give you great insight into whether you're really living the life of your dreams. And that's just one way to get aware, is take an accountability checklist at the end of your day. How are things going?
We were talking about your therapy journey during the commercial break, and you were saying, like, I didn't realize the first 5 years of therapy wasn't working for me. So when you're in it, you don't know that it's not working until you actually have another 5 years of great therapy to make the breakthroughs you need. What's your advice to someone saying, I don't know if this is working for me?
I think if you're thinking it's not working, it's not working. So this really comes down to trusting your inner knowing. And for me, I was just circling the drain in the behavioral patterns of pleasing, perfecting, and performing until it was making me insane. And I had no real access to peace at the end of the day. I'm like, something's got to give.
Right. Another telltale, when you're lying to your therapist, chances are, or withholding truth, right? It's that things are a little awry. I grew up in a Roman Catholic family. Therapy was frowned upon. I was told, just go to church, pray. If you pray, you will work through this. It took me 25 years of therapy to return to my spiritual practice, because then I realized I was like, oh, this isn't being thrust upon me. What are your views on, I know you call it spiritual inventory, but what are your views on how do I square this religion I was raised in versus this therapy or this journey of self-awareness that I'm trying to find?
I think that when you come into adulthood, you have to reckon with whose voice is that in my head? Whose idea of God is that? I grew up in a house where there was no such thing as God. And then I came into a 12-step program, and it was like, you better believe in God or else. And so I was avoiding it like the plague until I hit a spiritual bottom in recovery, just relying on perfectionism until I suffered so badly that I thought, if I don't clear away my shame, if I don't have a new experience in recovery, I can never hear my intuition. And once I did, I found God. That's the God of my understanding today. So I had to redefine it. We have to redefine it as adults. What does it mean to me to live a spiritual life, a joyful life?
Another step in breaking the circuit is self-forgiveness. Can you elaborate on that?
In recovery, the 9th step is making an amends. And so the idea of making an amends is not just I'm sorry, it's amending the behavior. And for 5 years in recovery, I was making amends to everybody else except for myself. And I don't know a single person who isn't carrying around some kind of shame, which I really believe is the most corrosive thing that we carry in our bodies.
Sure.
And this woman walked into my life at 5 years sober and said, have you ever made an amends to yourself? And that was the beginning of a forgiveness practice, because boy, is it a practice. You don't just wave a wand and love yourself. But that changed everything.
So if you love yourself, can you also have shame?
If you love yourself and you make a bad choice, you know that it was a bad choice, but you're not a bad person. So you might have guilt, but you don't have shame.
You see?
That's why she wrote the book.
There
by
you
the
go.
way.
There you go.
Also, an excellent follow on Instagram. I mean, I went down your rabbit hole. I was like, ma'am, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm not messing around.
Samantha Harte, thank you so much for joining us today. Congratulations on the book. It is called Breaking the Circuit, and you can get it wherever you get your books.